Goblin launch detected.
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. If you're looking for cards in the US, look no further, as you can use the promo code MTGMUDSTA to get you 5% off anything on the site. Or if you're in Canada like me, you can use the same promo code at Multizone to get 10% off your orders of singles. If cards aren't what you're looking for, Original Magic Art has playmats, tokens, and sweet art that you can use that same promo code to help you get 5% off your order there. If you're looking to bling out your cards, using Alter Sleeves is a great way to do so, and you can click the affiliate link in my About section to help out the channel as you make an order. And if you just want to help out the channel, you can always consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month and join the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game is another multi-zone matchup, with Joel playing his Xenagos deck and keeping Fyndhorn Elves, Arbor Elf, Soul Ring, Mana Crypt, Dryad Arbor, Misty Rainforest, and Scalding Tarn. Nick is playing Zaxara, keeping Find and Finality, Animist's Awakening, Green Sun Zenith, Tide Channel Pathway, Intuition, Sunken Hollow, and Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth. Fred has got his Scarab God deck again, keeping Liliana Heretical Healer, Thought Vessel, Chrome Mox, Yawgmoth Thran Physician, Bitter Blossom, Liliana the Dark Realms, and a Swamp. Last but not least, Dom is playing Vrondriss, keeping Gaia's Cradle, Farseek, Carpet of Flowers, Temple of Abandon, Cinder Glade, Forest, and Scourge of Alcus. Nick wins the die roll and starts us off. Nick plays a Tide Channel Pathway and passes to Dom. Dom plays a tapped Temple of Abandon, scrying 1. Fred plays a Swamp and casts a Chrome Mox, exiling Liliana Heretical Healer, and then casts a Bitter Blossom. Joel plays a Forest, and then taps it for Fyndhorn Elves. Nick just plays a Sunken Hollow for turn, and passes. Dom plays a Forest, and then casts Carpet of Flowers. Moving to his second main phase, he casts a Farseek, and goes to find a Stomping Grounds, which comes in tapped, and passes. Fred makes a 1/1 Fairy token, and loses 1 life on his upkeep. He then casts a Thought Vessel, and then plays a Reliquary Tower in his main phase. Joel plays and cracks the Scalding Tarn, losing 1 to find a mountain. He casts a Mana Crypt, and then is able to tap out for Xenagos, God of Revels on turn 2. Nick just plays an Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth. Dom plays a Forest and also taps out in his main phase, using the mana from Carpet of Flowers to cast a Scourge of Alcus. It comes in and deals 1 to Joel's Fyndhorn Elves. Fred loses 1 on his upkeep and makes another fairy. He casts Liliana the Dark Realms, and then upticks her to go and find a swamp, putting it to hand. Having to roll for the Mana Crypt, Joel wins the flip and takes no damage. He then plays a Misty Rainforest, losing 1 to go and find his own copy of Stomping Grounds, and shocks it to come in. He then casts an Arbor Elf and passes to Nick. Nick plays and cracks his own copy of Misty Rainforest and goes to find a tropical island. Tapping out, he casts his commander, Zaxara the Exemplary, and passes to Dom. Dom plays a land for turn, and then casts his commander, Vrondriss Rage of Ancients, who when it enters the battlefield, triggers the Scourge of Alcus, and deals 2 damage to Zaxara. In response, Nick casts Deli Rollick and targets the Scourge to try and save his commander, but Dom responds with a deflecting swat and changes the target of the spell to the Arbor Elf. Moving to combat, Dom then swings the Scourge at Fred, who chumps it with a fairy token. Fred loses 1 and makes a fairy token. Once that's done, he casts a Yawgmoth Thran Physician, and then upticks Liliana, and plays a Swamp for turn, and sacrifices a fairy to put a -1/-1 counter onto Vrondriss and draws a card. Rolling for the Crypt trigger, Joel wins and takes no damage. He casts a Soul Ring and plays a Wooded Foothills, cracking it to go and find a tapped Sheltered Thicket. He then casts Polis Crusher, but unfortunately due to its protection from enchantment, he can't pump it with Xenagos and has to pass. Nick just plays a Strip Mine, and then casts Grim Monolith, passing. Dom plays a Gaia's Cradle, and goes to combat. He swings the Scourge at Fred again, who once more chumps with a fairy token, and Dom then passes turn. In Fred's main phase, He pays for the second ability of Yawgmoth, discarding a card to try and proliferate the board. He moves to add another counter to Liliana and one to Vrondriss. In response, Dom casts a Beast Within to take out Liliana, and Fred gets a Beast token, but they have to use a zombie to represent it. Fred then casts a Jet Medallion in his main phase, followed by a Grave Pact. Joel rolls for his Mana Crypt, but fails and loses 3. He then makes his Polis Crusher monstrous, and then casts a Sylvan Library and plays a Dryad Arbor for his land for turn. Moving to combat, he swings the Crusher at Fred, who blocks with a Zombie/Beast token, and since the Crusher is able to deal some damage since Trample gets through, Joel gets to blow up an enchantment, and he chooses Fred's Grave Pact. Before the Grave Pact is destroyed though, Fred does get a trigger from the zombie dying, and Fred's opponents each have to sacrifice a creature. This has Joel losing Dryad Arbor, Dom sacrificing his commander, and the Grave Pact then goes away. With nothing else, Joel passes. Nick plays an island and recasts Zaxara. Dom's turn has him casting her Wandering Archaic, and this is the first time I've seen it in action, and I'm excited. Dom then goes at Fred with the Scourge, who once more blocks the token. Fred untaps and makes another fairy, losing 1. He then casts a Grave Titan, and puts 2 2/2 zombie tokens into play as it enters. Moving to combat, he swings Yawgmoth at Joel, who has no blockers and has to take the hit. Joel rolls for the Crypt and passes once more. He moves to combat, casting Savage Beating Entwined, and giving Polis double strike and getting a second combat phase. Moving to his first combat, he swings at Fred, who blocks with both zombie tokens and takes 10, but the Crusher still connects thanks to Trample, and Fred has to lose the Bitter Blossom. Moving to his second combat step, Joel swings the Crusher at Nick, dealing 14. Nick nearly taps out in his main phase to cast a Mass Manipulation where X is 2. He chooses the Scourge of Valkis, and the Polis Crusher is the creatures to gain control of, and uses the remaining 2 he had floating to pay for the Wandering Archaic trigger. He casts an X spell, and because he put 2 into the X, he gets to make a 2/2 Hydra token thanks to his commander, and he passes to Dom. Dom plays a mountain, and just passes turn. Fred casts Liliana the Veil, and upticks her to make everyone discard a card. Moving to combat, he swings the Grave Titan at Joel, and makes 2 more 2/2 zombie tokens on attack. Joel just takes the hit, and Fred then casts Balthor the Defiled in his second main phase, and passes. Joel untaps, and wins the Mana Crypt roll again. He uses his library trigger, but doesn't keep any extras. He casts a Carnage Tyrant, and goes to combat, pumping it with Xenagos. He swings the Dinosaur at Fred, who moves to block with the zombies. Before resolving damage though, Joel casts Berserk, and pumps the Dinosaur with enough power to take out Fred. Fred tries to save himself with a Swan Song, but doesn't pay the 2, which means that Dom gets a copy thanks to his Wandering Archaic, and uses his counter to counter the counter. Knowing he's about to die though, Fred uses Yawgmoth and pays enough life and creatures into it to put a -1/-1 counter onto the Polis Crusher to kill it. The Dino then dies at the end of turn thanks to Berserk, and Joel passes turn. Nick pays 8 for Animist's Awakening. He chooses not to pay the 2, and both he and Dom reveal their top 6 cards of their library and put all lands revealed onto the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom. This has Nick hitting only a Polluted Delta, while Dom hits a Mosswort Bridge and a Bloodstained Mire. Dom hides away a card, and Nick makes a 6/6 Hydra because of his commander trigger. He then swings the Stolen Scourge at Dom, and the 2/2 token at Joel, and passes to Dom. Dom untaps and cracks his Bloodstained Mire to go and find a mountain. He then casts a Terror of the Peaks, and recasts his commander Vrondriss. With his commander entering, the Terror deals damage equal to Vrondriss' power to Zaxara. He then activates the Mosswort Bridge to flip a Dragon Broodmother, who when it comes in, Dom has the Terror take out the Scourge that Nick had stolen. Joel untaps and wins his Mana Crypt roll again. During his upkeep, Dom also makes a Dragon token from the Broodmother, who deals damage to Vrondriss, which makes a 5/4 Dragon token, which enters and triggers the Terror again, and this time, Dom has the damage take out the smaller token on Nick's side of the board. Joel then plays a Prismatic Vista, cracking it to go and find a basic, and passing to Nick. At Nick's upkeep, Dom makes another dragon token and deals the damage to Vrondriss once more, who once more makes another 5/4 token. This enters with a terror trigger and deals 5 to Nick. Realizing that the terror of the peak is dealing the damage and not the tokens, Dom accurately represents his board state. Nick in the last ditch effort casts a Villainous Wealth where X is 6, but doesn't pay the 2. This has Dom getting to exile the top 6 cards of Nick's library, and at the 6 he hits a Rhystic Study, the Magic Mirror, and a Sensi's Divining Top. Nick on the other hand gets a Purphoros God of the Forge, and a Wheel of Fortune. He decides to only cast Purphoros, and since he doesn't have the mana to pay for the study, Dom gets to draw a card. With nothing else, Nick passes. Dom makes another token which will hit Vrondriss, and makes another 5/4 token, and deals 5 to Nick's face. He then casts a Great Henge, and moves to combat. He's got enough damage on the board to take out Nick, and also drop Joel down to a very low health, and Joel knows he's going to die to the token shenanigans that Dom's up to, and they decide to scoop it up and give the game to him. Game review time. So I'm sure by this point there have been a couple comments pointing out that Joel played Savage Beating incorrectly, and you're right, but thankfully this is a casual game with a bunch of friends, and I think if they'd realized it at the time, they would have been fine with it. It meant Fred took a little bit more damage than he should have, but I'm pretty sure he was dead to that Berserk either way. I really hope that Nick brings back his Zaxara deck, because it was really sweet to see an X-Tribal deck in Sultai. I'm used to that color pairing being so heavily focused on graveyards, it was a refreshing change of pace. Unfortunately though, the deck doesn't do super well when your opponents are able to copy your spells unless you pay 2 extra, and considering the Wandering Archaic didn't even get to see that many spells, I am very enamored with that card, and I'm glad I put a copy into Duretti. I would not say that it pushed Dom's deck over the top, but it certainly didn't hurt copying that Animist's Awakening and the Villainous Wealth, since Dom was able to get 3 to 4 permanents from those 2 spells for doing literally nothing. I'm not entirely sure what Fred did or said before this game to merit all the attention that he got this game. I do know that Scarab God can be scary, especially once you have a bunch of zombies out, but he really got the beat down this game. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.